Of the Business Committee, I call on Dr Paul Hutchison to make his valedictory statement.
Tanakwe, Mr Speaker. May I start by paying tribute to our House of Representatives and all who have passed through it, and to those who have died for New Zealand as commemorated on the walls of this great chamber. Our democratic freedoms have been hard won. On arrival in 1999, I found myself looking towards your chair from behind Sue Bradford of the Greens on one side and a magnificent display of dreadlocks belonging to Nandor Tanchos. I could only marvel and celebrate at the diversity of our Parliament under MMP. Somewhat wistfully, I feel the Greens look slightly less organic today than 14 years ago. But I have played my part. By chance, I happen to occupy the apartment that the Honourable Philida Bunkle got into controversy over her purchase of very expensive hemp curtains. I decided that I would donate them to the Greens and organised a formal handover ceremony to both Nandor and Sue Kedgley. A photograph was duly taken by the Dominion Post with us standing behind the street sign, which by pure coincidence happened to be called Grass Street. Mr Speaker, even though I've had huge encouragement from my benchmate on Skid Row, the Honourable Tau Henare, to be ejected by you from this House, as well as having gone to the same Onslow College as gold medalist ejectee Trevor Mallard, I have miserably failed to achieve that status. Mr Speaker, I want to take this last opportunity to comment on three areas that have been of particular importance to me, each of which I mentioned in my maiden speech. First, that New Zealand should do everything in its power to restore our status as a country that is a great place for all children to achieve their full potential. Secondly, that New Zealand should significantly grow our science and research base to better inform policy and broaden our economic opportunities. And third, that New Zealand should stay firm in committing to our respected independent foreign policy and continue to celebrate and encourage others to join our hard-won, inspirational nuclear weapons-free status. Today, I am so delighted that my wife Antonia and beautiful daughters Clemmy and Daisy are with other friends and relatives in the gallery. I'm sorry Natasha and Elizabeth are unable to be here. I pay heartfelt tribute to Antonia and her mother Pam, who have put so much love, care and devotion to our family. Mr Speaker, I wish to salute the magnificent and diverse people of the electorate I've had the honour and privilege to represent. The seat of Port Waikato and then Hanua includes vast areas of superb farmland that stretches from the east coast to the west. Pukekohe has been the epicentre, a multicultural, progressive satellite town or city of Auckland, home of the Ranfurly Shield. Franklin is distinctive by people knowing and caring for each other, by an incredible network of community organisations and colourful local leaders. Having spent my previous life near major hospitals and cities, it was a novel and wonderful experience to live on the land. I hardly knew what a heifer was, but now care for a small herd. On selection day, my wife gave me a card and a bunch of roses. There was a quote from Bernard Shaw which read, "He thinks he knows everything, he really knows nothing." That clearly points to a political career. Countless numbers of A&P shows, calf club days, farmers' meetings and interactions with the legendary Pukekohe Vegetable Growers Association has given me a huge respect for our farmers and growers and their love of the land. Their contribution to New Zealand's economy and our consequent ability to afford good health, education and social services should always be remembered. I've had the great good fortune to be supported by a superb electorate team. I thank every one of them, in particular the long-standing chairman, Ian McDougall, the campaign manager, Rod McGregor, and the secretary, Glenda Watson, for their extraordinary service to our party. May I thank Olwen Black, who supported me in Wellington with great professionalism for 13 years, followed by Sarah Rose Burke and Jennifer Fellows. May I also thank Jetta Wyatt, Raina Kappa and Linda Christie at the electorate office, but in particular Barbara Knowles, who is sitting in the gallery. Barbara represents the quintessential electorate agent, highly professional, highly knowledgeable and extraordinarily kind to those most in need. She has served our community with distinction. The team have made it possible for me to assist thousands of constituents, which is a very satisfying part of the life of an MP. Several local issues have been of immense importance to me. I would have dearly liked to have witnessed before I left this House a fair and honourable settlement of the Ngāti Tiata Treaty claim. I sincerely hope that day will come soon. The amalgamation of the 8 Auckland councils was the most divisive issue during my tenure. The thinking behind the draft legislation was definitely urban-centred. There was no provision to ensure the rural voice was recognised at the council table, despite 70% of Greater Auckland being rural. I was glad to have unanimous caucus agreement to move amendments that resulted in the Auckland Spatial Plan having to take regard of rural issues, and the Auckland Council would establish a rural advisory panel. I had requested permission to cross the floor as a symbolic gesture to the 97.5% of people from Pukekohe that were polled against amalgamation. I'm now of the view that if the Auckland Council has the same sort of determination to achieve efficiencies and cut unnecessary bureaucracy as the national government is doing with better public services, in the long run it will be a positive move, but there's a long way to go. The only time I did cross the floor was to support the smoke-free environment legislation, which has been a huge positive step for New Zealanders. It's hard to imagine now the discomfort of smoke-filled public transport pubs and restaurants. Although only last night at the launch of Speeches That Shape New Zealand, Tom Scott fondly recalled the rich, earthy atmosphere of Bellamy's in the past, sodden with beer, bad breath, body odour, smoke and spittoons, where the spitters really reached their targets. Those were indeed the days. 9 long years in opposition is extremely challenging. On the positive side, formulating good policy is fundamental to win the public over. As science spokesperson in 2005 and 2008, I was alarmed that New Zealand was well below international benchmarks for research and development, both from public and especially private industry investment. The only snag was that by 2008 election and the sense of the global financial crisis, Bill English had said there was no extra money for science. I cunningly introduced John Key to Peter Gluckman at his home on several occasions and lobbied hard for science to have greater recognition. The 2008 science policy had some modest but profoundly important changes. There would be greater funding for basic discovery research. A chief scientist would be appointed. Sir Peter Gluckman has been outstanding. Not only has his massive talent and experience informed the shape of our science system since, but he has introduced the idea of having a scientist in each government department in order to achieve evidence-based policy. Elections and pork barrel politics have for years plagued New Zealand with tempting mega morsels that have little evidence base that they'll work. This election cycle has been no exception, with the porkometer registering billions of dollars worth of doubtful promises. In my maiden speech, I'd called for scientists to be better honoured. After all, New Zealand's 3 Nobel Prize winners are all scientists. I managed to persuade Don Brash in 2005 and John Key in 2008 for a Prime Minister's Prize of $1 million per year to be awarded to our top scientists, and also media involved in science. It gives great satisfaction to hear the annual awards and also to hear Prime Minister Key state, "Science will be at the centre of my government." New Zealand would lead the way in the area of climate change most relevant to our country, not by taxing industries that are vital to us when no other countries are, but by creating a research centre that would look to reduce on-farm greenhouse gas emissions. I remember spending hours with Dr. Andy West, CEO of Ag Research, and detailing how this would be done. Tim Grosser seeded the idea of it becoming a global centre, and it's hugely satisfying to know that now over 40 countries belong. In the 6 years of this national government, public investments in science has increased over 60%, international benchmarks have been targeted, and a whole range of efforts to encourage private sector investment has continued, but a quantum leap is needed in the long term. While in opposition, I initiated the Select Committee inquiry into the quality of care and service provision for people with disabilities. An overarching principle that emerged that became a major recommendation to the government was that disabled people must be given the maximum freedom of opportunity possible to choose their own destiny. As the sector told us, nothing about us without us. I'm delighted that Tony Ryle and Tariana Turia have since instigated programs around New Zealand. Since the change to a national government in 2008, New Zealand has witnessed some of the most impressive leadership in our history. The combination of John Key, Bill English and Stephen Joyce is unmatched in terms of practical economic experience and personal accomplishment mixed with informed theory. On all fronts, achievements have been made by highly talented ministers. Paula Bennett has led some of the most important long-term social reforms for children. Whoops-a-daisy, and I missed something out. Ha-ha. And my word, somehow I've missed out the fact that Tony Ryle, in my view, has done the hardest thing of all. That is not only curb the increase in spending on public health, but achieve more services and achieve health targets. This is indeed a fantastic feat. Mr. Speaker, as Chair of the Health Select Committee, it's been a privilege to work with all parliamentary colleagues and the sector over the last 6 years. I hope that a small contribution has been made by 4 further inquiries which I instigated. The submitters and the help of many expert advisors has been inspiring, and I thank them all for giving their time so generously. Mr. Speaker, I have no time today to discuss the great experiences over the 6 years while on the Foreign Affairs and Trade Select Committee. Extraordinary opportunities and insights have come from chairing the New Zealand Parliamentary Population Development Group and co-chairing with Marion Street, Parliamentarians for Nuclear Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. The Wednesday night ritual of drinking whisky strictly after 10 p.m. and discussing the issues with our millennium intake, Phil Heatley, Lindsay Tish and Anne Tolley, has been a great pleasure. I want to go over the 4 inquiries. The inquiry into an early detection and treatment of prostate cancer led to an overarching recommendation that men and their families should be encouraged to seek up-to-date evidence-based information from their doctors so that they could make an informed choice for themselves. A prostate cancer task force was appointed and the recommendations are being rolled out around New Zealand as we speak. The inquiry on how to improve completion rates of childhood immunisation. I was a bit alarmed when the Dominion Post captioned an article I had written on this subject, "A prick in the right direction." I didn't take it personally. It's hardly conceivable that here in New Zealand, as recently as 2007, our completion rates for 2-year-olds were third world at less than 70%. Today, rates are over 90%, and for 12 out of 20 DHBs, Māori rates are higher than non-Māori. The inquiry into improving New Zealand's environment to support innovation through clinical trials of medicines and medical devices resulted in most recommendations being accepted. We now have one of the best ethics approval processes in the world, an innovation health hub, better industry relationships with Pharmac, and an improving clinical trials sector. And finally, the inquiry into improving child health outcomes and preventing child abuse with a focus from preconception to 3 years of age. Mr. Speaker, while most New Zealand children enjoy good health and have the opportunity to achieve their full potential, as we all know there are significant and alarming differences around New Zealand. The National Government has embarked on a suite of profoundly important changes to improve these differences. The solutions are not easy. I thank all colleagues across the political spectrum where our committee achieved a cross-party consensus over a range of contentious issues, from reproductive health and education to optimal maternity care, from the socio-economic determinants of health and poverty to an all-of-government approach to improve nutrition and prevent the impending burden of long-term chronic diseases such as diabetes. Every member of the committee made great contributions. I really appreciated the collaboration of Kevin Haig and Annette King, who, though we are miles apart on many political issues, see improving all children's start in life as a national priority for New Zealand, and I thank that always thoughtful journalist, Colin James, for his positive commentary. We recommended a proactive investment approach from the work of Nobel laureate economist James Heckman. The rate of return for the dollar spent on a child is far higher the earlier the investment is made from preconception on. Since the inquiry, the government has committed to introducing a range of programs, from Healthy Families New Zealand to a voluntary star labelling nutrition initiative to a strategy to help prevent fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Local government is now talking about handing over the responsibility of fluoridation to the Ministry of Health. Hopefully, our report helped nudge this along. However, I would make the plea to successive governments to take our entire package of recommendations very seriously and not just pick up the easy issues. The investment approach is a win for children, a win for adults, a win for the economy and a win for New Zealand. I reckon that with the political will, we could restore our country as one of the best places in the world for all children to grow up within 10 years. We need a comprehensive plan with KPIs to sit along the government's excellent Children's Action Plan and Early Childhood Education initiatives. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me a final say. I thank all the wonderful people who work in this parliamentary precinct for their outstanding services. There's no doubt in my mind that we live in the greatest little country in the world, and I wish all my colleagues the very best in their endeavours to make New Zealand an even better place than it is now, especially for children.
I call on the Honourable Phil Heatley to make his valedictory statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm absolutely delighted that you're presiding here today. You